Hello and welcome to Views from the Sideline. I'm your host, Joey Tysick, my partner, Malik Hill. We got a lot to talk about today. We got the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16, Elite 8 weekend. Lots of crazy stuff kind of happened. Sweet 16 wasn't super exciting, but once we got into the Elite 8, some cool stuff happened. We're going to talk about the NFL draft stuff coming up. They had some pro days. There's been a lot of movement, actually, a lot of different projections coming out. And then our last kind of topic that we wanted to talk about is NBA going through a lot of buyouts, seeing a lot of big players being bought out by teams and then just going to championship style rosters. So we'll get into it. Malik, how you doing? NCAA tournament still going on. We did lose the last Big Ten team. How you feeling? We'll get into it a little bit more, but just your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed with how the season went because I wasn't sure that they'd be this good. I figured they'd be a good team. Um Mike Smith and Franz Wagner. I mean, I don't know how else you can like describe what happened in that game. UCLA for some reason has some type of March magic. Most of the teams they've played have either just like fallen apart or haven't shown up. And Michigan did a little bit of both yesterday. Their two most important players, Mike Smith and Franz Wagner. Well, I wouldn't say most important, but the two guys that you need to get going. Like most analysts have Franz Wagner like projected as a first round pick. Mike Smith is the senior point guard that's known for his scoring ability. And they go 2 of 17 from the field for the entire game. And it really seemed like neither of them ever really got comfortable. Mike Smith, he was able to hit 1 3 in the second half where he was able to get into a rhythm coming off of a pick and roll, but outside of that, it was an ugly game. Johnny Juzang couldn't miss no matter who was on him, and he didn't get many open shots. Honestly, he wouldn't miss shots. 3 players scored in the first half for UCLA, and they were up by 5 at the half, and that pretty much showed where the game was going to me. And even though Michigan had points where they went on scoring runs, but UCLA would just come right back, and somebody would get hot just for a minute or two. But Big Ten regular season champions, Elite Eight run. I had them losing in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have them making it to the Sweet 16. So actually, I thought it would be a toss up in the second round, and I didn't think they would. If they got to the Sweet 16, they wouldn't get past there. So yeah, the fact that they made it this far, I'm happy with it. But yeah, disappointing ending from 2 players that were reliable for most of the season.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat. Like, it's a very mixed bag of feelings because we thought they could lose to LSU. They played good in that game. They beat them. We thought, okay, well, they got farther than we thought. Florida State's going to be really tough. And they destroyed Florida State. So then they get this momentum and you're like, wow, they could do something. They can make the Final Four. They got kind of a lucked out where UCLA beat Alabama. You never know. Like, Cinderella stories tend to end around this time. So you're like, okay, well, now maybe we're facing UCLA at the right time. Michigan can take advantage of that, get somewhat of an easy win. And nope, they only scored 49 points. I don't care who you are, you're not going to win if you're scoring 49
Yeah.
points. I know that UCLA won scoring 51, but man, that was an ugly game. And the thing that stinks too is like down the stretch, they had so many chances. Franz, one of the worst air balls I've seen in a while.
It's the worst game he's played at Michigan,
And
and the fact that that game came up in the Elite Eight against a lower seeded team like this it really is weird because he came up big in the last few minutes of the LSU game. He played really well against Florida State, and in this matchup, he just I don't know what happened.
yeah. And I think the hard thing too is like the last few times that we've seen some Michigan magic, you think back to Trey Burke hitting the craziest three, Jordan Poole buzzer beater against Houston. Like, Michigan's had some big moments. So to see them fall completely flat there with Franz airballing,
They had
Eli Brooks trying to get the rebound, just kind of throwing it up, not knowing how much time is left.
they had at least like 5 or 6 attempts in like the last minute and 30 seconds
Yeah.
to take the lead,
Mhm.
and they just couldn't score.
Yeah. And to be fair, once again, like, and we thought this might happen. Hunter Dickinson, as good as he played during the season, his tournament was not nearly what we saw during the season. And so to see him kind of be almost in a weird way forgotten about, like we're talking about Franz and Mike Smith, obviously because they had the worst
Well,
game.
because of what he did in that second half stretch, I can't get mad at him.
Mhm.
He scored like 8 straight points and got them back within like a 1
Yeah,
or 2 point lead.
right.
So yeah, even though he wasn't at the top of his game like he was in the regular season, he's a freshman, and the guys that are like more the experienced guys are supposed to come through, and guys like Shondi Brown, I I don't have like I don't have words to describe like how high on him I am. Maybe even as a pro, because he came up every time they needed him to hit a shot, he hit it
Mhm.
in every single game. He was tough on defense. He rebounded. He hit shots. Brandon John stepped up in a huge way. He wasn't a dependable scorer like Isaiah Livers. That's not his role. But when he got an opportunity to score, he did it. Like most of those guys, the guys they needed to step up that weren't like the main guys, they stepped up.
Yeah. I would say in this, as much as you know, I've been criticizing them, this would be the game where you needed Livers. Livers was kind of that closeout guy. Without him, they don't really have a closer per se. Livers was great from the free throw line to close out games, great at taking big shots. Um, so that's kind of where you miss him. But for me personally, I know you had lower expectations, but the thing changes when they made it this far and then come up so short. And I know you can have an off night, but I'm saying just because of that, it turns their tournament run into a disappointment. Like it was a success and it was a surprise at how far they got. But then once they got there and you knew how good they were playing and just coming up so flat, that's where it becomes a disappointment, I think, for me. Uh, but overall, at like the whole outlook of the season, it was a really good season. Nobody knew what this team was going to look like. Nobody knew how it was going to function. Nobody knew how Juwan was going to do in the tournament setting since they didn't get one last year. So overall, I think Michigan had a good season, but it was a disappointing end to their run in a way. Um, okay, so that's basically Michigan. They've run their course. They were the last Big Ten team. Big Ten, like we said before, big disappointment. So let's kind of rewind back to the Sweet 16. Gonzaga destroyed Creighton. Not even close. Gonzaga's just been running through teams. Same with USC, honestly. USC, they surprised me big time. The Mobley brothers are crazy. Evan
The way
Mobley,
they played in that game and the way they played yesterday,
yeah,
I don't know how to feel about the Mobley brothers like after those 2 straight games,
yeah.
because it was like a complete 180
Hmm.
from one game to the next.
Yep. So USC blew out Oregon after Oregon looked really good going into it. Like we said, Michigan beat Florida State really handily. UCLA, to get to Michigan, had to beat Alabama, which was a big surprise. To beat them in overtime after Alabama made a really clutch shot to tie the game. But then UCLA kind of just ran away with it in overtime. Really crazy. Um, Baylor took control of Villanova. Arkansas Oral Roberts came out strong in that game against Arkansas. Thought that Oral Roberts could keep it going. Arkansas fought their way back, won 72-70. And then our Loyola Chicago Ramblers losing to the
Talk
Beavers.
about another team playing flat.
Yeah.
They had it's almost like they're parallel games.
Mhm.
Michigan, UCLA, and Oregon State Loyola. Like
Yeah.
Loyola looked completely they didn't look anything like the team that beat Illinois.
Yeah. I think that game at halftime was like 18-20 or something, or 20-23. It was
It was yeah.
real ugly. And then Houston took care of my boys. Well, my boy, Buddy Boeheim, just
Finally
completely stopped
ran
them.
out of gas.
Yeah, they Houston was known for their defense, and that's what they showed up with. So then we moved into the Elite Eight these past couple days, and Gonzaga made USC look like nobody all of a sudden. After, like we talked
They
about.
turned the ball over 7 times in like the past. I mean, like the first 4 minutes.
Yeah.
They just kept giving the ball to Gonzaga. It was terrible.
Yeah. And Drew Timme, I don't know if you've seen, but he's been tearing up the tournament. So
I was watching. He dominated them.
People just can't stop him right now.
He dominated both Mobley brothers.
It's crazy. Like we talked about, UCLA beating Michigan in a rough one. Baylor took care of Arkansas. It was close for a little bit, but it was kind of one of those times where Baylor they got enough of a lead and they just never could break through it. And then Houston again stymied another team, stopped the Beavers. The Beavers did make a little bit of a comeback. Oregon State, it looked like they were going to just get blown out. But they made it an effort. Houston won 67-61. So now we get into the Final Four. Does UCLA have any magic? Is there magic enough to beat Gonzaga the way that Gonzaga's playing?
Gonzaga, like, turning into what Alabama and Michigan turned into. It seems so unlikely that UCLA can just have this, like, I don't want to keep saying magic, but why do teams keep falling apart against them?
Yeah.
What is there a clear explanation?
You know their guys, Johnny Juzang, Jaquez, like those are the only guys that I've seen every game basically.
Like, the past 2 teams they've beaten, they're not better than them, but they beat them. Gonzaga they're at a whole different level right now.
Yeah.
I don't see UCLA. They've been getting all their production from Juzang and Jaquez for the most part. Tiger Campbell scores a few points when he has to, but he's mainly an orchestrator. They give the ball to Cody Riley down low every now and then, but I don't, unless Juzang goes for like 35 and Jaquez goes for over 20. I don't see how they can keep it up against Gonzaga.
Because like all of a sudden, like I said, Drew Timme's been taking over. They don't have a matchup for him. Corey Kispert shoots the lights out. Jalen Suggs hasn't even had to do anything in these last few games. Like Ayayi and those guys.
He still had a really good game. He had like 18, 10, and 8.
Yeah. But like they've been getting so much production out of their other guys even now at this point. Like I don't know how Gonzaga loses. Like it's their tournament to lose. Because even as good as Baylor's looked, Gonzaga's looked way better. They just look like this is the time to make a perfect season. So I don't know. UCLA, they may have magic, but I just don't see it. I just can't picture it. Like it's again, they would have to have another team just completely collapse against them, which who knows why that is happening, but I feel like that's the only way.
I mean, UCLA has played pretty good defense, but like even when teams are getting open shots and they're just not hitting.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah. And then on the other side, we got Baylor and Houston. Houston, I think, going a lot farther than a lot of people expected. Just because, they're that smaller conference school. You don't see them play as much, but they've been around the last few years.
It's funny that they got a 2 seed.
Yeah.
And people just expected them to
lose.
Be one of the teams to be upset.
Yeah. Yeah, they're one of those teams that's kind of like still fighting for their respect, I think. Even the last tournament, we've seen them around the last few years, and they've been a really good team. Baylor's been weird too because they haven't played nearly as good as they have during the season, and we know they had a little lull during the quarantine time, but they've gotten it going a little bit in this tournament, but they just haven't been. I guess it's more like they've been in streaks where they'll go on a run and they look like unstoppable. And then like a team will kind of fight back and come back in. And then they'll get to what I keep seeing, that 10-point gap. Like when a team pulls within 10 points of Baylor, it seems like Baylor's really good at holding on to that lead. But they also don't blow anybody out when they have that. So it's really odd for me to see that. But right now it looks like it's going to be Gonzaga and Baylor, I would think. But
I think Houston is going to make it tough for them. But
their defense is tough. But I think Baylor has enough weapons similar to Gonzaga where like it's going to be so hard to be perfect on defense against that team. I think
those 2 teams have been like the obvious 1 and 2
mm-hmm.
from like, well, they weren't ranked 1 and 2 at the beginning of the season, but once it was known and once everybody like noticed it,
Yeah.
there was no question. And from then like to now,
Right.
they're the top 2 teams, and there's a gap between them and everybody else.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought that Illinois could sneak in there, but like we said, they got upset early, and so then it's basically nobody knew what Michigan was going to do. So Gonzaga and Baylor were from there on the favorites. Um, Overall, I know it's not completely over right now, but I kind of want to go back. Did you like? Do you think a lot of this tournament was set up like the upsets that happened? Do you think that was in part to COVID, or do you think that's still the trend that we've been seeing in these? Like, it seems like every year in the tournament we're getting more and more upsets. Do you think that's just more of the trend of these smaller schools and smaller conferences being more accustomed to playing bigger teams, or do you think it's a mixture of both and like the COVID stuff and not being in front of fans? Do you think that changed the tournament at all?
I think it is a mixture of both, but there is a clear trend that like lower seeds are starting to upset higher seeds more and more now. Like there was a time where lower seeds, like it was clear that the talent difference was just so far between a 2 and a 15 or like 14 and a 3 that those seeds wouldn't have a chance. And there would be 1 or 2 upsets and everybody would lose their minds because like the year like Bucknell beat Kansas in like '06,
Yeah.
a Patriot League team isn't supposed to be like Kansas at the top of what they were.
Yeah.
Like that was a complete shock. Nowadays, upsets are still shocks, but it's not as shocking anymore.
Yeah.
Like Oral Roberts had Max Asmus. He was the leading scorer in the country.
Right.
Kevin Obander was scoring 30 a game almost. Like the talent difference wasn't huge.
Yeah.
Other teams could barely match up with their scoring. Uh, Oregon State, they're more of like a March Miracle thing
Right.
because they didn't play like this most of the season and then they hit this hot streak.
Hmm.
But UCLA, even though they're a blue blood and they lost 5 of their last 6, they were near the top of the conference most of the season. Johnny Juzang was a 5-star prospect that came in from Kentucky. Like they have talent on their team. They get to the Final Four. So yeah, I think it's becoming more of a trend. Then you have the 16 seed beating Virginia a few years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, and, now that that door was open a few years ago, there shouldn't be like huge surprises when upsets happen.
Right.
And yeah, even though Oral Roberts beating Ohio State was a shock at first, but after their next game, it was like okay,
They're a real deal.
they have the scores to be here, and it's not that much of a shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I always go back and forth because there's a lot of people that say like, upsets make the tournament more exciting, and then there's other people that say upsets make the tournament exciting in the first couple rounds, but once you get past those first couple rounds, you want to see the good teams because it
But
seems like
that's usually what happens. 'Cause
yeah,
we have 1, 1, 2, and then 11 now.
right,
Like Loyola was the last. I can't remember what seed they were. They were like a 12 seed
hmm
when they made the Final Four against Michigan that one year.
yeah, and so like, are you in the opinion that you would rather like, do you like when a Loyola makes the Final Four, or would you rather just have all the 1 seeds by the time it gets to the Final Four be there so that you have quote unquote the best games or the best competition out there?
Honestly, I think it depends on the 1 seeds because there are always years where a certain team gets underseeded that's clearly better than what they were seeded at, or there will be a 2 seed that everybody looks at and they're like they played in a weak conference or like they played bad competition all season and they just happen to have a lot of wins.
Yeah.
So it's not the same every year. And it was really different this year with no Duke, no Kentucky. Michigan State was in a playing game and got put out in the very first round. Like the blue bloods weren't present, so it made even more chaos in this tournament.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm a fan of like anything, honestly.
So it varies from year to year.
Yeah. And I like the upsets, but I like when I see good basketball at the same time. But as long as people go into the tournament knowing that, this isn't a determination necessarily of the best team in the country because otherwise you'd be playing 7-game series like the NBA to figure that out. This is a best of 1. You can make crazy runs if your team is hot at the right time. And that's why I think I enjoy it. If you kind of take away the idea that that's what this is about, then I think it makes the tournament a lot more exciting. And you can just root for underdogs, or you can root for your home team or whatever. And that's what I think makes it exciting. And that's what is crazy about basketball is I feel like in a lot of other sports, you can't get these kind of runs like in football and stuff. You see upsets and things, but it's like the cream of the crop usually rises. Whereas basketball, you have one guy that can go off at one time and just carry a team sometimes, depending on it. And that's partially why basketball is my favorite sport. But I think that's what makes the tournament so exciting and one of the cooler things in sports. So we got the Final Four coming up, national championship. I'm going with Gonzaga and Baylor. I think that's who it is. I think Gonzaga, at this point, I think they're going to run the table. Do you think anything differently could happen, or do you see the same thing?
How can Johnny Juzang keep that up?
Even if he does,
He scored 55% of UCLA's points.
yeah. And
Can-
even if
can
he
he
does,
keep
can
this
that
up?
win the game?
True. That's another thing. If he goes for 30, will it matter?
Right.
Because I don't know if his teammates will be able to pick it up with his 30.
Yeah.
And even when Gonzaga isn't like firing on all cylinders, they still make plays that keep them like, it's always clear that Gonzaga is a better team than the other team they're playing, even when they're not blowing them out.
Yeah.
So I don't know how UCLA could close that gap unless they get another example of a team falling apart somehow. And I don't see Gonzaga doing that.
Yeah. Do you see Baylor coming out on top on the other side?
Yeah. They're overall, like, in terms of guard play, I think Dejan Jarreau and Quentin Grimes match up well with what Baylor has at their guards. But once you get to big men, I think Jonathan Chama and Mark Vital, I think they're going to have a rebounding advantage on both sides, defense and offense. And Matthew Mayer off the bench,
Man.
he's just, when he comes in, he changes like the
Mhm.
flow of games.
Yep.
He's 6'9", like athletic, and has that jumper, so he could get hot in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Baylor winning that one.
Yeah. Do you see Baylor being able to take down Gonzaga in the final?
I don't know. I'm not sure. That matchup, I think I'd take Gonzaga, but it's a toss-up. Like, it's so much firepower on both sides.
I mean, I would hope that it would be a fun championship game.
Yeah.
But at this point, the Zags just seem, like I said, they just seem unstoppable. I don't know. I mean, maybe the championship game is their game that they fall apart. Maybe they get a scenario like Villanova or something when DiVincenzo popped off against Michigan. Maybe somebody from Baylor just goes to town. But I don't know. I'm excited. Hoping for some good games. We'll see if the UCLA Magic can stay alive. I don't think it's going to. But we'll see. Then we'll wrap up the tournament. And then we'll try to move on. We'll have NBA playoffs and stuff like that. NFL draft we'll talk more of. But let's get into some of the NFL draft stuff that has started. There's been quite a few mock drafts put out by ESPN and things like that. And just yesterday, pro days for quarterbacks and things have been going on. We've seen some wide receivers here and there make some crazy stuff. Rondale Moore. Jeez. Did you see his vertical jump?
It was like 42 or 43.
Yeah.
He's 5'8". Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid.
So one of the big ones yesterday that we wanted to talk about was Justin Fields. He ran a 4.4, a 4.4440, and not that that's a big surprise, but Justin Fields has kind of been tailing off in a lot of mock drafts. Zach Wilson, the hype train has, I mean, if we're talking about going to the moon, his stock has gone to the moon.
He's the next Jets Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah.
It has been determined at this point.
Zach Wilson
that
is
he
basically
is-
GameStop right now for NFL
I
draft.
mean,
Am I wrong?
you might not be. You might not be.
Because Trevor Lawrence he's one. He's number one. He's the first pick. Everything after that starts to get really interesting. There's some people that want the Jets to stick with Sam Darnold because they think he's just as good as Zach Wilson. They just haven't unlocked that yet. But then Zach Wilson has made some throws. And then, like I said, Justin Fields kind of been all over the place. But I think his pro day yesterday has started to creep him back up on boards. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
You just said a simple statement about Zach Wilson that has made people go insane, and that's what's bothered me the most. Zach Wilson has made some throws.
Yeah.
That is how simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all it's taken. Just a few high level throws I can't make,
Yeah.
but a few. Oh my God, look at that. That's all. That's what's making people do this.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he played really well last year. He put up stupid numbers, but people just automatically believe that after all that pretty much low competition he played all season, every game he had was a highlight reel pretty much, because the defensive backs he was thrown against weren't good enough. He could just put it anywhere and his receivers would go get it.
Yeah.
He made some great throws, but he was just throwing it anywhere he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot different than what Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields were doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I like Zach Wilson, but I'm not in this love affair that everybody else is in.
Yeah. The one nice thing that I think about that is that Zach Wilson's stock is so high. The Lions don't really have to worry about Zach Wilson because I think there's no way he's there now for 7. At one point, he was early on in some mocks. Lions don't have to worry about Zach Wilson. It's almost like Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are 1-2. Zach Wilson maybe could flip-flop if the Jets really decide they do want to stick with Sam Darnold. That's all up in the air. But the rest of the quarterback situation with Trey Lance, Justin Fields, even Mac Jones is starting to creep up for a lot of people. It gets really interesting. And the nice thing is that with all these mock drafts coming out and different things saying how these players are doing this and that, there's a lot of options that have opened up for the Lions, I think, going into the draft. The Lions could almost choose whatever they want to do. It's like choose your own adventure. The Lions want to go quarterback. Do they want to go offensive line? Do they want to go defense? Or do they want to go a receiver? Because I mean, we talked about it. They made some wide receiver moves, but they're not very good wide receivers overall. And now there's even talks like the Bengals might not take Penei Sewell, where at one point it was like, sure thing, they're taking Penei Sewell, protecting Joe Burrow. But now, I can't remember when did Jamar Chase's pro day, was that yesterday or
I don't know if it was
today?
yesterday or today.
I think
I
it's
saw
today.
highlights of it of today, so I'm guessing
I think it's
it might have
today
been
because
today.
there's like they said like Florida and those guys are doing stuff. So people are talking about Kyle Pitts and all that as well. But they were saying that Jamar Chase, his athletics are just as they were before. He
ran a 4.38. He has a
41, 41 inch.
And his highlights speak for themselves.
So there's talk now that a Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow rekindling coming back now. So like that's insane in itself. So if Penei Sewell's at 7, can the Lions pass up on a guy like Penei Sewell, who was, for a while he was right there, solid lock in at number 4. The other interesting thing is the Dolphins traded out of 3 to trade with the 49ers back to 12. And then the Dolphins traded 12. Who did they trade?
The Eagles.
They traded 12 to the Eagles for 6. And the Dolphins got a couple other extra picks. They got an extra first-round pick and a couple later round picks. Dolphins are making moves. That franchise has shown you exactly how to rebuild.
They did it in
on
2
a quick
years.
turnaround. Yeah,
2 years.
So the Dolphins have been looking at wide receiver a lot at 3. They were also thinking Jamar Chase, things like that. So to get out of there and then trade back into 6, where they can most likely still get Jamar Chase, or if they don't get Jamar Chase, they can get a Devontae Smith or something like
or
that.
Jalen Waddle.
Whatever they want. Pick of the litter.
Yeah.
Is insane. The interesting thing now becomes the 49ers, where they're all the way up to 3.
They're clearly going for one of the quarterbacks.
They have to be going for a quarterback. Which also puts into question where's Jimmy G going to go?
I've heard a lot of people saying like like he could potentially be traded, and I don't think that will happen. I
You
think
think he'd be a
I think
mentor?
the 49ers said like for this year. I don't know if they said specifically for this year Jimmy Garoppolo is our guy, but they said Jimmy Garoppolo is our guy at the quarterback position right now,
Yeah.
and they could treat it like an Alex Smith situation where Pat Mahomes came in, sat a year, learned. Alex Smith helped him like learn everything he needed to know to become an NFL quarterback,
Yeah.
and then let Alex Smith go going into next season and make him the quarterback.
Yeah.
Whoever they draft, whether it's Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, whoever.
Right.
So that I think that could be a situation because Jimmy Garoppolo, it's crazy. He's still like really young.
Yeah.
I think he's only like 27, 28.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he's getting close to 30, but he's still a good NFL quarterback.
Right.
But he might not be the best for that team.
Yeah.
Which is why they probably moved up to make this trade.
And they're still a really young team. So they can take the time. Like they were preseason Super Bowl contenders last season. So this season their expectations are just as high. They're going to get their guys all healthy again since their entire roster was hurt, it seemed like last year. And they're going to be able to also develop a new quarterback who could take over and be better than Garoppolo. And then they'll just be in the same situation next year, and they just have a really bright future for themselves if that quarterback can turn into something special. Like we said, whether it's Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or whoever, maybe they go surprise and go Trey Lance. I don't know.
Yeah, the division is loaded now. So I don't know. I don't think it would be a good idea to throw them in the fire and rush it because you could easily mess a guy up by doing that. There's only a few quarterbacks that have succeeded after being thrown into fire in the past, like 20, 25 years. Like Eli and Peyton Manning
Mm-hmm.
both succeeded being thrown in the fire. They had rough starts and then got it together. It's not a lot after that.
Yeah.
And giving a guy a year to sit behind Jimmy in a division that's going to be competitive all year with 17 games now, which we haven't even brought that up.
Yeah.
They added one more game and took away a preseason game. So who knows what those standings will look like by the end of the season. But the 49ers have a championship defense. Their receiving core is basically like second and third year guys now. They're super young. You got Kittle. You still have three running backs that are quality.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just need the quarterback that fits exactly what all those pieces are on offense.
You got two really good young wide receivers to throw to, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So the quarterback's going to have weapons. It's not like he's going to be in a situation where, I guess you even think to like Daniel Jones, where like some of his receivers had been hurt and things like that. And he just didn't have weapons to throw to. He hasn't really played with Saquon Barkley.
The fact that people like hated that pick so much, and he's had to deal with so much around him, and he's still been progressing slowly and hasn't like completely busted out yet. Daniel Jones deserves a lot of credit, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, kind of not getting to Daniel Jones necessarily, but talk about the Giants for a second. The Giants are one of the favorites to take Kyle Pitts.
Where are they?
I think they're fifth.
Really?
Fifth pick.
Huh.
Because
Didn't realize they were that high.
What it's Jags, Jets,
Falcons are 3 or
49ers, Falcons, or the Bengals. No, the Falcons are 6, I believe.
I thought the Falcons were in. Oh, they were predicting that the Falcons.
Oh, they can't be 6.
They were predicting that the Falcons would move up. I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna have to look this up now because
exactly.
I'm lost. There has been movement. Oh, man.
I don't think the Falcons have moved.
We're doing our
NFL draft order.
We're doing such a great job at this.
We're always prepared. That's one thing we always are. Falcons at 4.
Okay.
Bengals at 5.
Okay. Bengals are right after them. Okay. So yeah, I don't know.
The Giants actually have the 11th pick.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I know where I'm getting crossed up because originally it was talking like Kyle Pitts at 11 to the Giants, and people are like, "Whoa, Kyle Pitts at 11?"
He's gonna go.
And
higher
now
than that.
Kyle Pitts is also like Zach Wilson, where he's gone to the moon. That's why I'm thinking that the Giants
I can
are
understand
higher.
Kyle Pitts. I don't understand why he's just now getting all this hype. Yeah. He was completely unstoppable during the college football season.
Yeah.
He's that good.
Mm-hmm. Wow, who is this? NFL.com. Okay. Um, since I'm on this, NFL.com came out with their mock draft 2.0 yesterday. They have the Jets at number 2 taking Rashawn Slater,
Who was that?
a tackle out of Northwestern.
Okay, moving on.
They have Zach Wilson at 3 to the Niners. They have the Falcons take Kwity Paye.
At top 5?
Yeah, at 4.
Jesus Christ. Okay, we need to get away from this mock draft.
They also have Kyle Pitts at 6. Okay, that's normal. To the Dolphins. That's possible. They have the Lions taking Jamar Chase. Justin Fields going all the way down to the Broncos at 9. And the Panthers taking Trey Lance. NFL.com, get your stuff together, man. Philadelphia Eagles at 12 taking Devontae Smith.
12?
Yeah.
Okay, stop reading this mock draft. Stop it. Don't say anything else.
No.
I'm
just so interested.
We're not saying anything else about this mock draft.
All right, fine. Anyway, let's talk about the Lions real quick. We'll when we wrap up NFL, we'll talk about the 17-game season. Who do you want the Lions to take for you?
Once again,
Maybe not for the team, but for you. What would make your draft day be happy for if the Lions took?
I would be happy if they were able to get one of the receivers. Although I still want them to get a quarterback. It seems like they're gonna play Jared Goff this year, which if he's just like a one or 2 year guy, bridge quarterback, I guess that's okay. But yeah, if one of the receivers are there, whether it's Devontae Smith or Waddle, I think Chase will be gone by then. I wouldn't be mad if they took one of them because, yeah, the receiver room isn't that great right now.
Yeah.
It's not strong. So you need some type of young weapon that can energize that offense.
Mm-hmm. Would you rather take Smith or Waddle? Because I think that's interesting.
If Smith is there, I'm taking Smith.
Okay. I almost lean towards taking a Waddle.
Why? Because you want to go on the Tavon Austin train.
I like having the speed guy.
I want a guy that's the best returner and a great receiver. How much has that worked out?
I mean, there's guys like Deshaun Jackson and stuff like that. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's one of my favorite players.
Yes.
I mean, and people always talk like now the comparison to any speed guy is Tyreek Hill. I don't know if you want to do that necessarily because Tyreek Hill is kind of his own beast. But for some reason, I like the idea of Waddle, I think, a little bit more. But, I mean, to be honest, at this point, the way that these mock drafts are working out, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but there's like a no-lose situation for the Lions. I ruined it, I know.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
But
you just jinxed yourself.
It's like partially how I feel. Like I can't. Like where do they mess up? Like if Penei Sewell drops, easy. I think
if the Lions took Kwity Paye, I wouldn't be mad.
Exactly.
Because they need pass rushing.
Exactly. That's the weird thing too. Is like you take a kind of oddball pick that nobody expects, like Kwity Paye. I'm fine with that. Like that's a good move. They need linebackers and stuff. They need they need everything on defense. Patrick Surtain, sure, why not? I don't care. Like I don't see any, like Kyle Pitts even. I don't want Kyle Pitts for the Lions, but if they take him, he's an offensive weapon.
They're going to use him more as a receiver than
right.
a tight end.
He's a different than Hawkinson. I know a lot of people would be upset because they're like, oh, they took Hawkinson, blah blah blah. Pitts is just another tight end.
Yeah.
You see, the Patriots are going back to their 2 tight end sets.
Well, you can't just.
I know, but
you can't compare those situations.
But you have to a little bit to at least understand it. CBS has got another mock draft. I wanted to see what they do. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, CBS. Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, Justin Fields 3. Thank you, CBS. They have Kyle Pitts at 4 to the Falcons, though. That's crazy. Jamar Chase to the Bengals, Devontae Smith to the Dolphins, and Jalen Waddle to the Lions. So there's a run of quarterbacks and then a run of tight end wide receivers. That's crazy. Penei Sewell all the way down to 9 for the Broncos. Trey Lance to the Panthers. Rashawn Slater down to 11, which is more in line because he's like I think he's the second best tackle.
I've heard about a Northwestern offensive lineman going first round,
Yeah,
but I haven't heard about that type of hype.
he's like the next guy behind Penei Sewell, basically.
Okay.
But he's like 10 to 20 is kind of where I would expect him to go. So, thank you. Okay. Travis Etienne to the Steelers at 24. Parsons all the way down to 26 to the Browns.
You just turned this into a mock draft show.
I know. We got
just reviewing mock drafts.
We'll do that later. I'm just always interested. Wow. Okay. Last thing on the NFL, 17-game season just got announced. Like you said, they're taking one preseason game away to, stick with the quote-unquote 20 games of the season. Like it, don't like it, don't care.
I'm honestly going to say the players agreed on it,
Mm-hmm.
and some players are still complaining.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I like it.
Everybody's going to watch the extra week of football.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it because I hate preseason games. I think they're pretty much useless.
I thought 4 weeks was always ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm happy they took one away.
Yeah. And to get one more potentially competitive game, I'm fine with. That's cool. We know week 17 is an off week for playoff teams anyway.
The only thing that I'm truly interested in is watching Hard Knocks to see how much faster of a process it is for them to cut players now. Because watching Hard Knocks was like the only time I fully understood the 4-game process of, okay,
yeah,
we need this time to figure out exactly what our roster is. Cut that game away. How much faster is the process now?
Yeah. You're going to have to cut more guys going into that first preseason game, I'd assume. Because you got to think, okay, we got these guys for these, that are game ready, and we're going to test them. So you got to cut more guys off at the beginning to be like, they're not close enough that we can't even take a chance on them. So I can see that.
Maybe it's going to lead to not signing as many guys as usual.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that as well. But overall, it doesn't tip the scales for me. It's again, it's nice, but it doesn't do anything crazy. It adds an extra fantasy week. That's kind of fun, I guess.
I think Thursday Night Football going to, what is it on Amazon Prime? I think that's what they did.
I think you're right, yeah.
I think that's weird, and a lot of people think it's stupid. I think it kind of is.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird too. But I did
streaming is taking over everything.
I was gonna say I did find that you can watch some of those Thursday Night Football games on Twitch through their Amazon channel. Sometimes, some people are streaming it illegally, but there was,
as always,
there was a real stream where it was by Amazon Prime. It might have been one of those ones hey, we're moving to this next season to kind of tell everybody.
I have Prime, so most Thursday night games aren't blockbuster must-see games.
Right.
So I'm sure I'll tune into a few of them because it'll be the only thing on TV at the time, maybe. So
yeah, it gives you something to watch. But yeah, overall, 17-game season, sure, why not? I'll take it. More competitive games, less preseason games.
Yeah. That 17th game, it's gonna be weird. No more 8-8 teams. No more Cowboys 8-8 or 7-9. 8-9 records.
Yeah. Can't be 500.
10-7. Well, it sounds so weird when you think about it, how the standings are gonna look at the end.
Yeah.
And did they say they're adding another playoff team, or did they do that this past year?
They did it this year.
Okay, I forgot.
Yeah.
The only thing seeing the standings at the end is going to be hard to get used to.
The only thing I don't know is if they're going to move the schedule up. Is the season going to start a week earlier, or is it going to start the same time and they're going to end a week later? That's one thing I did not see. So I'll have to look into that. Okay. Last topic of the day. NBA. Their NBA is getting closer and closer to playoffs. We just passed the trade deadline. We talked about some of that stuff. Did we talk? We didn't talk about the trade deadline stuff because that was on Thursday. Okay. So we gotta talk about that too. Oh geez, we didn't leave. I didn't leave enough time.
The big ones.
Okay.
Nikola Vucevic to the Bulls.
My man Vooch going to the Bulls. He's played pretty good with the Bulls.
Yeah,
since he
they
moved.
still look bad right now, but it's
Mhm.
going to be a process.
Yeah. The Pistons did not make the moves I wanted them to make. They did trade DeLon Wright to the Kings for Corey Joseph and a couple of second-round picks. Sure,
It's all right.
I like it. I mean, we needed to get rid of him. He had some value. Like I said, I wanted them to get rid of Mason Plumlee, wanted them to get rid of Wayne Ellington, just for extra draft capital. Also because I feel like their trade value is really high right now. Another big one, Aaron Gordon going to the Nuggets,
He's already looking good for them.
as the Magic have basically dumped their entire roster. Um, did Evan Fournier end up getting moved?
He got traded to the Celtics.
He did go
And
to
in
the
his
Celtics.
first
Okay.
game, he shot 0 of 11, I believe.
That's kind of how
Yeah,
Evan Fournier
Didn't hit a
is.
shot first game.
Just wait till the Celtics play the Pistons. Evan Fournier seems to kill the Pistons, so just wait.
He'll have his moments.
Yeah,
In the playoffs, he'll have games where it's like, where did that come from? But
yeah, he can get really streaky. So I think adding that piece to the Celtics is good for them.
Rondo to the Clippers.
Rondo to the Clippers, that's a championship type move. We know playoff Rondo is real. Even as he's aged, it's a real thing. So not surprised there. Victor Oladipo going to the Heat
I still don't know how to feel about it.
for almost nothing.
Like the fact that they were able to keep all their young guys
Avery
is,
Bradley
is
and
the
Kelly
best part.
Olynyk with a second round pick or
The
something.
story of all of it is the Rockets. That's the real story. Poor Christian Wood.
Yeah. My only
Poor
argument,
Steven Silas and Christian Wood.
my only argument to that is that they've gotten picks, and in the way that their team works, James Harden wanted out, and teams knew that, so teams weren't going to overpay for James Harden, and so it puts the Rockets in a really, really sticky situation. And then just things started happening. But to be fair, they found a good piece in Jay Sean Tate, I think. They signed Kevin Porter Jr. He's played pretty good for them. John Wall's been all right.
How about Kenyon Martin Jr.?
Hey,
Got a few highlight dunks.
Yeah.
Looking like his dad out there.
So they're in an okay spot. I mean,
They traded PJ Tucker to Milwaukee.
yeah. They've committed to the rebuild, and they got what they could for their stuff. Although it sucks.
I want Eric Gordon to get out of there. I
Yeah.
want to see him win with somebody.
Yeah. He does need to get out of there. So yeah, there's some stuff like that. Is there any other big trades that we missed?
Norman Powell.
Oh yeah.
Norman Powell to Portland. Gary Trent to Toronto. And somebody else got sent from Portland to Toronto too. I can't remember. But that was the main part of the trade. I can't remember who the second player was.
Yeah.
But extremely weird storyline. Gary Trent, Jr. and Sr. got traded at the exact same times in the career from Portland to Toronto in the same amount of games.
Yep. 41 games into their third season, Gary Trent Sr. went from the Portland Trailblazers to the Raptors. And now, all these years later, Jr. did the exact same thing. It's kind of crazy. And
it's not kind of crazy.
It's crazy. And the other thing
it's insane
that I pointed out to Malik and Chris in our little group chat was that the 3 players in the NBA named Gary were traded on the trade deadline. Gary Trent Jr., Gary Clark, and Gary Harris. Fun fact.
Poor Gary. I think Gary Harris's career, it sucks.
Well, now that he's going to the Magic,
he was averaging 18 a game 3 years ago. He's only played 70-something games since then.
Yeah.
Just injuries have just completely ruined him.
Yep.
Yeah, the Magic completely rebuilding.
The Magic
just sticking to their young guys.
Oh, Magic don't look good though.
I like them getting Wendell Carter, even though Mo Bamba's still there.
Yeah, get Mo Bamba out of there, please. Save my man. Save my man Mo, please.
Weird, man.
Ugh, that still irks me. Was he the number 5 pick?
I think so.
Jeez, man. I know that sometimes guys don't work out, and he hasn't played up to his potential, but they haven't even given him a chance.
I think they raised the level of his potential too high.
Yeah, maybe.
He should be Clint Capella with a jumper.
Yeah.
Which is extremely high level.
Especially right now.
But people want him to be Hakeem the Dream.
Yeah.
Let's chill out.
Yeah.
If he's Capella with a jumper, that is elite.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes topic that we wanted to talk about for the NBA.
The meat and potatoes topic.
The meat and potatoes.
We need to keep that as a part of shows.
Come on,
Joey's meat and potatoes topic.
That's like a common phrase. Come on, what are we talking about? NBA buyouts. We know Blake Griffin got bought out by the Pistons, then signed with the Brooklyn Nets.
Listen, you just bring up what he did in that Pistons game. How did that make you feel?
I don't know.
Like the Pistons slighted him.
It's mixed. It's a mixed bag. It's weird.
Dunking and running down the sideline
And,
screaming at him.
Hard screens and man, it was weird. It was a weird scenario. I was like, did something happen? Like, did we miss something?
It was like he was making an "I still got it" statement.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess because the Pistons gave up on him. I guess, but he wasn't healthy.
Right. He hasn't been healthy, and
Yeah.
this team is trying to go in a new direction.
They traded for him knowing he was an unhealthy star.
Right. The last 2 years, he's not been healthy, so he hasn't been great. And even at the beginning of this season, he didn't play very good.
Exactly.
And he was fairly healthy, and he just didn't play good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was uncomfortable almost. And then former Piston Andre Drummond got bought out,
This is the latest one.
and he's going to the Lakers now. Which basically gives them a big three. And he's finally the third best player on the team. I've been saying it for years. Andre Drummond cannot be the best player on a team. He can't be the second best player, but he can probably be the third best player. Right now, he's probably the third best player on this Lakers team. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out for them.
Honestly, all he needs to give them is like 10 and 12 or 10 and 11.
He can easily give them 15 and 12, I think.
I don't think they need 15.
They don't.
I don't think they should want 15 from him.
I just think they can just from his offensive rebounds.
They should want more rebounds than points.
Yeah.
But yeah, those times where he has like 20 and 20, yeah, that's good.
Because this allows Anthony Davis to work from the perimeter, which as much as you don't like to see a big man leak out to the perimeter, Anthony Davis is one of those guys that you can trust out there. So it opens up their offense a lot too, I think. So it makes it really interesting. It makes it really scary.
Lamarcus, he plays tonight.
Yeah. So this will be a
Milwaukee.
premiere.
Yeah.
Lamarcus Aldridge also got bought out.
Brooklyn.
He's going.
I wanted him to go to Miami.
Wait, didn't he go to Miami?
He went to Brooklyn.
Oh, he went to Brooklyn. You're right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a crazy last couple days. But yeah. So he's also going to the super team, which is weird.
Yeah,
he's going to be their starting center too. That's what it was.
This is the part of the year where I start to get annoyed by the NBA
Mhm.
because these are like half all-star teams being formed now.
Yeah. This is literally like an NBA 2K team that you use the way that trading and stuff works in a video game, and you're like you can kind of fix the system to be able to get all these superstars. That's what it feels like. It feels like that scenario. Now I know these guys are like veterans. They're kind of aging. Aldridge, he had a really good year last year, and this year kind of fallen off. He's had some injuries though, but he's still a quality player, and he's going to move into their starting lineup. He's going to be their starting center. They have been talking back and forth about Blake starting in their starting lineup, but they could bring him off the bench as an energy guy. Who knows? But you just look up that lineup: Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, Lamarcus Aldridge. Even going to you start talking about Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, like the extra pieces there too are just, it's crazy.
Bruce Brown.
Yeah. Former Pistons. Did you realize that? Spencer Dinwiddie, Bruce Brown,
Yes,
and Blake
I know.
Griffin?
Yes.
Come on.
Yes, I know.
Oh, man. And then the other one that we've been talking about, he got bought out a long time ago, was DeMarcus Cousins.
They say he's expected to sign a 10-day contract with them. I don't know what that
To the Clippers,
yeah.
right?
I don't know what that's like leading to.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's a 10-day.
Just maybe to see if he's healthy. I
was about to say maybe it is just to see how healthy he is. But they might as well. I don't know why just sign him.
Right. I don't think it hurts anything.
If you're considering it, just do it.
Yeah. Because we've seen DeMarcus. He's been all right.
He's had
good
some
games.
Flashes. He had good games in Houston.
Yeah, he's had some flashes. Honestly, I think pairing him back up with Rondo is really good. We saw what they did in New Orleans. It was fun.
That I don't like talking about that year
What?
because
Oh,
it's
that
because
was disappointing.
it's the most fun watching like a brand new pairing for like half a season I've ever had in
Yeah.
my entire life.
Just because the way it ended was so
Seeing
disappointing.
Boogie and Anthony Davis running pick and rolls off of each other was insanity.
With
Like,
Rondo doing his crafty
people
things.
do not remember DeMarcus Cousins was taking pick and rolls off Anthony Davis and crossing guards over.
Yeah.
And they were like hitting threes and like throwing it to each other in the post. It was incredible.
There was a run where they
It
were
was
each
incredible.
averaging like 20 and 10 or something. It
Like,
was
I
really
wanted
crazy.
that to stick together because since then I haven't seen another like game like how they were playing.
Yeah,
It was
fun.
it was incredible.
Mhm.
But yeah, injury messed it up.
Yeah. So final thing, we just have a couple minutes. I just want to get your opinion on the NBA ballots. We've kind of heard kind of your feelings, but do you like the way that the NBA buyouts work? Do you not like it? The problem for me is I can't figure out a way to fix it, but do you like it or not?
I'm starting to not like it because it's now becoming a tool to we're a month away from making the push. Now it's time to get our final like mega piece to complete our super team.
Yeah.
Like, even though it's the NBA, you can do this. Buyouts have always been a thing, but it's never been as important as it's becoming. Now buyouts are becoming like one of the biggest priorities of teams that are trying to make playoff pushes.
Yeah. And I've heard people argue saying like, "Oh, but all these teams can bid on these players once they've been bought out." Okay, well they can still take less money to go to a championship team. And
It's literally like a shortened version of free agency.
right. And it's nice that the NBA is like a players league or that it's turned into it, but it is starting to get a little bit abused and I'm starting to get a little bit concerned.
It's weird that a high level player a month before a season can just choose which playoff team they can want to jump on.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah. And now like even I don't think it's going to do anything. It's obviously not going to do anything for this season, but even like the Thunder are shutting down Al Horford for the rest of the season because they're moving on from it.
Yeah.
And so it's just weird that all this stuff happens like that and then they can go to these championship teams and you especially with a guy like Andre Drummond's caliber, like his contract was huge with the Pistons and now he's getting paid nothing to go play for a championship team. Like it just I don't know. It doesn't feel right. Like I said, I don't have a solution to it. I just don't really like it.
Well, there is no solution to it. Players are gaining more power.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's going to increase the amount of power players get, but it's at a point now where look at this Nets roster.
Yeah.
Look at that starting five.
Mm-hmm.
Buy out Blake Griffin, go to the Nets. Buy out Lamarcus Aldridge, go to the Nets. James Harden forced his way to the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the game.
Yeah.
That it is now.
Yep. And it sucks for small market teams, especially I think that's where it really hurts is the depth of the league. It does make it fun for certain playoff series, but it hurts the overall look.
Like luckily, like the West is still the West.
Yeah.
And there are still like Luka is on the Mavericks and they're still up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
Porzingis has looked good recently. They got JJ Redick. They traded for him. That was a good move. But I don't think they're not beating the Lakers. I don't think they're beating the Clippers.
Yeah.
Like over the next 4 or 5 years, it's like 3 teams maybe that'll win a championship. I'm still not convinced Philadelphia can win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not convinced.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into more NBA talk on the next episode. Next week, we'll wrap up the NCAA tournament. Like I said, we'll have the final and everything. Try to get some more draft information. Maybe we'll start talking through some of these weird mock drafts that I started diving into. And then we'll get back into more of the NBA stuff. Malik and I are debating about getting into baseball this year. We'll see how that goes. We'll think about it.
Yeah.
We'll think about it. We'll sit on it.
Maybe short segments.
Yeah, but it's a possibility. Maybe we'll ease our way back into it. But this has been Views from the Sideline, and we'll see you guys next time.
Basketball season is over. I got to get mentally prepped for football now.
So how about the NBA playoffs?
I'm just saying in my Michigan sports mind. is, yeah. We'll talk about that